what often is lacking for me in this area is a compassionate language, because it's a dark area. So how would you approach trying to get people to think about boycott as a compassionate method? This is not about being harsh necessarily, but like a mother would look at a kid and say, if you're going to misbehave, nobody's going to play with you.
Well, I think of boycott actually as a way of expressing our compassion, because there's so many of us who will never commit violent acts. I mean, unless we're just desperate or something, really desperate. But generally speaking, there are many people who just don't think about being violent. I mean, they just find it just reprehensible. But they feel deeply, and they want to help make change in the world. And so that is why I think boycotts are really kind of soft on the people who are being boycotted, because they're not being attacked, And it's also very good for the heart of the person who's doing it, because we're not giving in to acts of violence and harming people in that way. And we know that in the world, people just think violence is automatic. I mean, physical violence, where you blow up people's houses and dispossess them, harm their children. But boycott, on the other hand, just completely refuses to go that route. And instead it says, well, I will just practice a kind of discipline in myself where I'll make myself not need whatever it is I've been buying from you, in the hope that your heart will begin to soften, and that you will understand, how you are harming other people.
How do you keep your heart tender without burning out? Because this is a very dark area. I think there's a myth, that people don't care, and that's why they don't want to be involved in the Palestinian issue. But the reality is, when you look at it close enough, eventually a lot of people close down and think this is beyond them. To be involved is beyond them. I think a lot of people feel powerless rather than not caring.
I think that there's a tendency for people to think that what awful things that happen to other people will never happen to them, and therefore they're safe. And we must disabuse them of that notion, because if it can happen to the Palestinians, believe me, it can happen to us. And it has happened to us, actually. It has happened to Native Americans, of which I am part. It has happened to the Africans, of which I am part. It has happened to poor white Europeans, of which I am part. So we want to understand that we're not safe by closing down. I don't care how depressed we get. My way of doing it is to just work as hard as I can, get as depressed as I need to, go home and take a nap, swim in the river until I feel better, and then I come out again. I mean, it's really just a matter of understanding balance.
And last question. In your work, you say you're comfortable in your skin being in this world. I think a lot of people, me included, sometimes don't feel I even belong to this world because it's so dark.
I don't experience the world as dark. I experience the world as bright and magical and wonderful. And that's because I am thoroughly immersed as much as possible in nature. And I'm lucky to have been born in that kind of setting where I can see the magic. I love this planet. I don't know a desire to go anywhere else.
Can you give me and others advice for those who haven't had the privilege of being born into nature?
Become acquainted with nature. It is your friend. It is also the only God there is.